Hi you kids, how we doing? I hope you've had a lovely week and all that. I am back again with another half-assed tutorial on Polyrhythm and Polymeter. This time I'm having a look at the model samples and I'm going to point out some of the differences between working with Polyrhythm and Polymeter on the model samples and the circuit. And let me tell you, the model samples is a dream compared to the circuit. Right. To go back and refresh, polymeters play at the same beat and the beats are divided up into the same sections, but the bars take a different amount of time to get through. And polyrhythms, each of the beats is divided up differently, but they take the same amount of time to get through a bar. And you have to understand a bit about time signatures for it. So if you remember, time signatures are where you say how many beats you've got in a bar. So for most music, 4/4 time, which is 4 beats divided up into 4 sections or 4 steps. And that gives you the 16 steps of your average step sequencer. And if you have a look at the model samples, you've got those 16 steps laid out along the bottom. To get us going, we're just going to use that as a normal step sequencer. We're just going to lay down a very, very quick 4/4 sequence. Okay, track 1, nice and easy. Press play, press record. That allows me to input steps on our 16 track step sequencer. So I've already got bass drum on here. I'm going to put that in on step 1 and step 2, and then step 8 and 11 and 12. It's the same beat as we did on the circuit. And I'm going to now use the parameter lock, sample locks. Very, very handy feature. So I press 5, which is beat 2, and then I press the sample button and I can go into model, and I'm going to prick snare drum, and then I'm going to do the same with step 13, which is beat 4. And now I'm going to swap to track 2 and put on the hi-hats. Hopefully I've already got the hi-hat sound on there. And if you remember the first time we did this on the circuit, it's every other step. Nice, simple, easy beat, nothing too spectacular. But if you remember the time signatures, which tell you how many beats there are in a bar, we can make this a bit more interesting. So we're going to start looking at waltz time, which, if you remember, is 3 beats split up into 4. And because that's got 3 beats that are split up into 4 sections, that means I need 12 steps. So on the model samples, just like on the circuit, you can tell it how many steps you want a track to be. So I'm going to change this now on the samples and change it to 12 steps. And the way you do this, you press function and this button page, which takes you to the scale page. And if you look here, it says mod PTN. That means pattern, but I don't want to change the whole pattern. I just want to change the track. So I click down to select, and it's changed to TRK, which is track. And then the real point is to change the length. And at the moment it's saying 16, and I want to change that down to 12. So I've got 12 steps. Okay, that's all I need to do at the moment. And if I come out of there, I'm back on 2. But I want to accentuate this. I want to make you know that you are listening to waltz time. So 3/4 as opposed to 4 anything else. So I'm going to emphasise step 1, step 5 and step 9, which is beat 1, beat 2 and beat 3. And the way you do that, it's doing the sample lock trick. So I press start, going into record mode, and then if I select that beat, I can go down here and change the velocity up to 127. And then if I go into step 5, change that up to 127. And step 9, 127. But I'm going to give it a bit more variety on that because I want this to be a bit more interesting. So I'm going to fill in all the gaps in between, but I'm going to fill them in with much lower velocities. So if I put that in there, and take that down, and take the velocity right the way down, but even that you can't really tell about the drift. So there's one more trick that I'm going to do, and that's I'm going to change the length of the decay. And if it's accentuated with a longer decay, at certain points you'll hear it drifting when I start to set them off, and that'll make the pattern more interesting. And the way I can write that in there without programming it step by step is to just press record and play, and if you look, the record button is flashing, and now I can just go. There you go, that's got something a little bit more interesting in there. Like the hi-hat's being opened a little bit there. And if I press stop, we'll start them going off, you'll hear that gradually drifting. So back there, back to the beginning, get them going, and there we go, nice and easy. Bit of polymeter there. When it gets to the end of step 12, you still got another 4 steps of the 4/4 time going, and that's what creates the drift. Now, let's get to the polyrhythm, because that's where everybody wants to go, and polyrhythm is definitely a little bit more complicated. And the problem that we've got with polyrhythm is that we don't have the drift in the same way. The 2 bars have got to be the same length. We've only got 12 steps to play with, and that means that we're going to have to change the way that they line up with each other, which is blissful on the model samples. We want the beats to fall in exactly the same place. So beat 1 to line up with beat 1 in the 4/4, and beat 2, 4/4 and 4/3, they should all line up together. It's only the divisions between. Right, let me show you what the trick is on the model samples. And we have to go back into that scale page. Here we go. I go function, page, that's in the scale. It's already modified by track. Its length is already 12. But this is the secret. This is the clever bit. Scale. So if I go down to scale and I press select, I can turn it to 3/4. And what I'm telling it to do is to take those 3 beats of 3/4 time and stretch them out to cover 4 beats. So I'm playing it in 3/4 time. So 3/4 the amount of time that it would normally take, and that means that I get triplets playing properly. I'll show you what I mean. I've now got it so that if I emphasize different steps, so not the 1, beat 1, not the 5, which is traditionally beat 2, or the 9, which is traditionally beat 3, but step 4, step 7 and step 10, that will give you the accented beats, and that will lock everything into time and it'll sound nicely. So this is what we're going to do now. I'm going to play with the velocities again and change it so that the velocities for 4, 7 and 10 are maximum and everything else is lowered, and that gives you the 4 beats. 127, 4, 7. Remember, I've got to take 5 down. And 10. And 9 I can drop. Yeah, 127. Now if you listen, those accented beats will be on the beats 1, 2, 3, 4. Definite triplets going on there. A lot less painful than the circuit. You don't have to do half as much in the way of maths. You just have to remember where you are. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you will find it useful, this video. And if you have found it useful, thumbs up. And in fact, if you made it to the end and you haven't become a subscriber, then you really must have a bit of an issue there. If you have found it useful and you think somebody else might find it useful, spread it around. As they say at the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation, share and enjoy. Okay kids, that's all I've got time for. That's all I'm going to do this week. Hope you loved it, and I'll see you soon. Bye kids, bye.